We have a topic for today. So, I am going to say depending on how long the topic goes, we may play a game afterwards. The thing is that the last time I did this, I ended up speaking for 3 hours. I have also been made aware by the file size that if I speak for 3 hours on this overlay, because the overlay is animated, it makes the file really, 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 really big. So I will be switching out overlays. Once I get talking about the actual things and stuff, but I'm just trying. I made a couple of slides this time, and then I realized that like I should have done it. I didn't make them with the camera and captions in mind, and that shows. So you are going to have to bear with me clicking my camera on and off and moving around captions. So I know, but I am also, this is free. No one is paying me. I mean, you can definitely support me if you would like, exclamation support in chat for that, but I'm not remaking the slides. So you're just gonna have to bear with me. I'm finishing getting all my mod tools up and running, and then once, yep, there it goes. And then once I have that, we'll go ahead and dive on into things. Also, as I am finishing setting up, please do like repost the Blue Sky post. I know this is a topic that a lot of people, whether they know the name of it or not, have been feeling lots of different types of ways about. So, yeah, go ahead and send it to folks, and then we'll get into it. And I'll do a whole introduction and everything in case I think this ends up being good enough for to put on YouTube again. It's broad daylight and I'm already hearing fireworks. It's 1:15 here. I don't know what the hell y'all celebrate. Oop, that's not even on the right slide. Cool. I thought I reset those. Hold on. Here we go. Okay. I hate you, Google. Okay. There we go. So, as it, like, I was already not a huge fan. I was already not a huge fan of fireworks in adulthood and things because of PTSD, and now I'm just like, what are y'all popping fireworks for? Especially I live in a black neighborhood, so I'm like doubly so, like, what the hell? All right. Yeah, so y'all should be able to see that now. I'm going to keep the music down low. I'm going to keep it on for myself a little bit. Hey, Puddle, thank you for that resub. 9 months. Amazing. Amazing. Oh, thank you for that Ko-Fi. Definitely so much appreciated. Life is, hold on, life's rough. So thank you for that Ko-Fi. Cause, yeah, being a person who helps people for a living right now is not great. So yeah. But thank y'all for the resubs, the Ko-Fis. So we're back on the thing. You all probably can't hear the music, which is exactly how we want it. Might just be a low beat in the background, but I need it to keep my headset from turning off. So, I am going to turn it down for myself, however. There we go. Perfect. Okay, everybody. So, today hey DC, welcome in. All right, we're up, we're running. Let's go ahead and go, and look at that, 1:15, not too shabby. All right. So hi everyone. I am Lamia, also known as Mental Lamia, also known as Cassie, just depending on where you know me from. I am your neighborhood online mental health cryptid, and today we are going to be talking about hypernormalization and trusting your lived experience at the fall of an empire, because right now everything going on feels real bad, but there's a lot of expecting things to keep going on like normal, and folks acting and purporting that things are normal. This is, of course, not new, especially not new if you are not white. But there's a lot to say here. If you have questions, please put like exclamation, or not exclamation, put like caps, like question or a capital Q, and then the question, just so I can pick them out of chat much more easily. Also, if you would like to support me, exclamation support in chat brings up my Ko-Fi, my Throne, and you can find my socials and everything as well. I think it's just socials. Let me make sure. Yeah, exclamation socials brings up my Blue Sky, my Instagram, and the bio link with everything else as well. So if you would like to spread the word that we are doing this thing, and people can find it, they can find the VOD afterwards as well, especially if they are subscribed. So I am not doing this for... like, this is a free resource. There's a likelihood that it will also end up on YouTube, the way that the one I did a couple of weeks ago about mental and physical safety during protests and in the face of the fall of an empire did end up on YouTube. No guarantees that this one will be nearly as long, however. So if you are watching the VOD of this, whether on Twitch or YouTube, thanks for watching. Spread the resources, because whether you're in the US or not, the world's going in a really scary fucking direction. And whether it's new to you or not, whether like it's still, we're in a rough spot worldwide. This stream is from a very heavily USian context, specifically from a black American person. So do be aware of that and all of the experiences and biases that can be contained in there. Additionally, I am a mental health professional. I am not your mental health professional. Exclamation, if you're in Twitch, exclamation disclaimer is... pops up my little thing about the fact that none of what we're talking about today should be construed as the initiation of a therapist-client relationship, nor construed as medical advice. I am talking, this is purely educational, purely from my lived experiences, both as a person in this world and as a professional who has a lot of education and training. I know this is a lot up front, but I have to say these things because that's how things work, and the law may not apply to the state, but it will surely apply to me if folks want to harm me. So, I'm gonna pause. Nope, the ad's already in progress. Okay, well, if you're watching ads, thank you for watching ads and supporting the channel. Again, just to give folks a chance to finish up the ad so they're not missing anything. If you're just now popping in, we have not started. You haven't missed anything. Congrats. Make sure that any questions you have, put like a Q or all caps question and then ask the question. If you try to ask the question in all caps, AutoMod will stop you. So do be aware of that. The only thing that should be all caps is the word question. Otherwise, AutoMod will bop you because AutoMod is very protective. Very protective. So yes, while we wait so that we're all starting on the same page, we're just gonna wait a minute or two. So also, if you're like, oh gosh, this person's like super cool and interesting, you can follow the channel. It's free. You can also find my podcast, Woke Mental Wellness, where we play tabletop role-playing games and then talk about how it interacts with our lived experience as Black queer folks. So the newest season is Windy City Nihilism, and it is very much timely and very much real. So yes, that also is an option for you. Okay, so we are getting at the end of ads now. Just a couple more minutes. How is everyone doing today, by the way? How is everyone feeling? Because for those of you who might not be in the United States, it's the 4th of July. This is supposedly a holiday. There's nothing to celebrate. I'm not celebrating. I don't really think anybody should be celebrating. I think the only way that anyone should be celebrating right now is by like throwing a revolution in Minecraft, of course, for legal reasons. For legal reasons in Minecraft. All right, I'm just waiting for 5 seconds, and then we'll come back to everything. Fabulous. The ad breaks over. Welcome back, folks. I vamped for you. I vamped until the ad was done because I thought it was kind of shitty to start the thing with ads going, and I did not catch them in time to pause them that time. But now we have a half an hour without ads. So, welcome. I already did my introduction, so let's intro the topic, which is hypernormalization. You may or may not have heard this word lately. You may or may not have heard this word previously. Regardless, I'm gonna start off by giving some definitions, talking a little bit about the history of the word. This also necessitates that we talk about cultural gaslighting as well, and so we are going to juxtapose those two topics today. Again, questions always super helpful, always welcome. Please put them in chat. If you want to behave in a weird way, I will be happy to ban you. So do realize this channel is also a liberatory channel, so we do not stand for genocide of anyone. We do not approve of ICE or prisons. We do not like borders here. So that is my own stance. That is the stance of this channel. If that rubs you the wrong way, this may not be the educational stream for you because, yeah, I'm not backing down on this, especially right now while people are disappearing in the streets and we're pretending like things are normal. That is not normal. So, That said, let's talk about that piece of people disappearing in the streets, and we're all still going to work and having to pay bills, because it's weird. It's really, really weird. So if you'll bear with me a second, because I'm going to make lots of things a lot smaller and move them. Like I said, bear with me, y'all. So, hypernormalization. This was a term coined or first articulated around 2005 by Alexei Yurchek. Sorry if I have said that wrong. To describe the civilian experience in Soviet Russia. And it describes basically two key things happening in folks' life, right? The first thing is you can see that systems are failing, that institutions are broken, they are betraying people, they are not doing what they promised nor were designed to do. That's thing one, right? You're having these experiences, you are seeing, hey, I didn't think that's what the military was for. Hey, I didn't think that's what the law was for. Hey, I thought the law would apply to everyone, right? Breaking down of governing systems, institutions, those key facets. Then what makes it hypernormalization is on top of that, for a variety of different reasons, there is a lack of leadership and no one's doing anything about it, right? It's this situation where you can see things are not working in a way that is particularly helpful or particularly great for most people. You see that the things happening are pretty unpopular, and yet no one is disrupting that. No one is stopping that. Folks are just day-to-day folks are carrying on lives as normal despite the systemic violence and dysfunction that's happening. And then this can result in things like dread and denial and dissociation and despair, and it's a lot. Like, it feels bad. Oh, I forgot to turn on my lights. Hold on. That will help. There we go. So that's what hypernormalization is, right? Now, you may have heard this back in like 2021 and in general post the acute pandemic phase, because this has been happening a lot. Now, on top of this, we can add in cultural gaslighting, which cultural gaslighting is when there is a systemic, and there are both systemic and historical ways that a society is trying to convince its people that something didn't happen, or it didn't happen the way that they think it happened or claim it happened, right? So if you know what gaslighting is, actual gaslighting, right? Not just disagreeing with someone's like experience, but like convincing them they are wrong, right? That they didn't experience what they experienced, that their reality is not is not accurate when it in fact was, right? Because this gaslighting, the term comes from an old movie where literally the lights were gas and the husband would like turn out the lights or turn on the lights and convince the wife that she was going crazy, right? So these hypernormalization and cultural gaslighting go hand in hand, and they feel bad. They feel heavy. So when you watch the news and content warning for the whole stream, I am going to be very explicitly talking about current events and the things that are happening right now and the way that we are being told they are or aren't happening. So do be aware, I am going to be talking about current events and very, very explicitly and at points possibly in depth. So for example, a week or two ago, the news was filled with a manhunt because a Democrat in Minnesota was shot dead along with her partner. I think the woman was killed and the guy, but one set of partners was killed and another set was shot and critically wounded in an assassination that was going to go further by a man who was deeply aligned with the current administration. And we see the current administration advocating and has been since 2014 during the campaign the first time, has always advocated violence and harm, physical violence and state violence and harm against political opponents, right? People who disagree with him. So this person who assassinated these politicians, I believe it was a senator and a representative or two senators in Minnesota, was aligned with the administration, and then the news went away. We had a whole ass assassination, multiple, an assassination and an assassination attempt. It was in the news for a couple of days, and now no one's talking about it. A Nazi opened fire on firefighters. And again, once it was found out that he is deeply aligned with the current regime, it disappeared from the news. And so the fact that in that time we are then seeing coverage of things like the mayoral candidate in New York, like, oh, this person who is a citizen of Uganda marked African American. Ooh, what a scandal. And they're no longer talking about the assassination attempt. They're not talking about any of the other wild, absolutely wild criminal things happening. They're not reporting about the concentration camp in Florida that they straight up named Alligator Alcatraz. And we're all like, oh, it's the first of the month. It's time for rent. Pay your rent. Go to work. That's hypernormalization. Hypernormalization with cultural gaslighting. Right? Oh no, that's not the news. That's not a big thing. This is a big thing. Right? We see courts being like, hey, don't do that. And then the regime is doing the thing that they said they didn't, and then being like, we didn't do that. That's not true. We didn't do that. oh yeah, this bill is going to end taxes on tips. No, it's not. Yes, it is, because we said it is, but that's not what the bill says. Well, but what we're saying right now, you're wrong, right? That's gaslighting. So what happens is that in these circumstances, it can become really hard to trust yourself, because you're constantly being told by authority figures and systems that you're wrong. And so not only are you feeling bad because things are bad, because things are a mess and are absolutely heinous, but also because you are constantly having to fight to be like, wait a second, didn't they just assassinate Democrats like 2 weeks ago? Wait a second, didn't they just, that judge just said that they're keeping someone incarcerated to try and protect them from being wrongfully deported because no one will stop anyone from doing the thing that they're acknowledging shouldn't be done? And it makes you feel like you're losing your mind. And that feeling is exhausting, and the constant having to fight against these things are exhausting, right? It's a similar exhaustion that if you're like me and are still COVID conscious because you care about yourself and other people, is similarly exhausting. Like, I had a friend who, I mean, I know she didn't mean anything by it, but was like, oh yeah, I have COVID again, because when you fly, it's just it's a coin flip. And I did have to take a breath, and I did have to slow myself down, because it doesn't have to be just a coin flip. It's a coin flip if you're taking no precautions. But we have so many options, from personal HEPA filters to masking to antiviral nasal sprays to mouthwashes that also help barrier against the virus being able to take up residence and things, right? And so even that, because our systems have so thoroughly combated proper information and have flooded us with misinformation, that's the point of cultural gaslighting, where now, right, it's not just one person, right? That's what makes it cultural, because now people are doing it without realizing it. They've normalized a normal that should not be. They've made something normal that shouldn't be normal, right? And then are doing nothing to change it, and are just like, well, just a coin flip. Now I'm sick again with a disease that could kill me that could kill me, and at best is highly likely to, continue to erode my brain and bodily symptoms. That's wild. And yet, that's the state of the United States, and honestly, several other Western countries, where it's just like, yeah, just rounds of COVID, and we don't even report the deaths anymore. It's hard to even track them. So this can all sound really, really doom and gloom, really, really fast, which also isn't good, because we do still have to do stuff about this. We do still have to combat these systems, right? Part of what hypernormalization is the doing nothing, right? It is the normalization of dysfunction, right? of people disappearing off the streets, and well, that's just Tuesday now. Tuesday is just your neighbors randomly disappearing. Wednesday is, political opponents of the president being murdered. And you see how that erodes both the public and freedom and our sanity. We have to refuse to habituate to injustice, right? You hear that a lot if you have read or listened to any civil rights speakers, any South African apartheid activists, your Mandelas, your Kings, your Shakurs, etc., right? Like, these are all things of, we are habituating to shit that was never meant to be normal. And so that's kind of a starting place, right? So the key to this is not to despair, nihilism, etc. That causes, that creates a paralysis, which actually feeds into hypernormalization, right? Because you just go on autopilot and you do all the things that you normally do, and then we're stuck in this cycle where we're like, yeah, everything's broken, but I don't know what else to do. So let's go ahead and talk about hold on one second, y'all. Let's go ahead and talk about kind of combating these things. So some ways to combat the dread, the denialism, or the denial, the despair, right? So we're seeing a lot of things, right? One of the few things that is actually unprecedented about what is happening right now is the level of access to news and information about what is happening worldwide, for better or for worse. That's unprecedented. And in this new era of deep fakes and AI slop and bullshit, we have to be very careful in our fact checking, in what we do and don't share, and putting in that extra labor, right? So read and watch critically is our first little box, our first little diamond here. Check your sources and explore multiple outlets. Now, especially for mental health and health stuff, a lot of information has gone missing. Government sites are not what they United States government sites are not what they used to be. You can use the Wayback Machine to see what used to be there and what contradicts. You can look at other countries' governments and things. If you can get access, you can look at, if you're looking at like pop psych or pop health articles, go look at the original article it links to. See if you can't find it. A lot of researchers are because researchers don't actually get paid for publishing their articles. And so a lot of folks are putting stuff up as open source and things. You can find different versions on through like Google Scholar still. And so look at what you're actually reading, because the interpretation and what people are actually saying may not line up with what the research was. what the news is saying may not line up with what actually happened. This New York Times article with Memdi, I am going to say his name wrong and I'm going to feel absolutely awful. But the New York mayoral candidate, Mahmoudi, I think. I looked it up and now it's just all the way out of my head. But regardless, the point being, they're like, oh yeah, they're trying to make it sound like what it is when white folks declare being like 1/16 Cherokee. And in reality, what it is that our labelings for race and ethnicity in the United States are baffling. They're so nonsensical. They're so wildly nonsensical. And so what it is people assume African American means black. But African American also is the same term we use for people who were born on the African continent and came here, right? So Elon Musk is African American, right? He's not fucking black though. And so that baffling choice, that information, however, once you dig into it a little bit, what you find out is the way they got that was through a hack that they chose not to publish anything from during the campaign because it would have hurt the Trump campaign. But now they are publishing it, and the source of these things is a eugenicist Nazi, white nationalist. And so this is why read and watch critically is one of the big ways to combat hyperrealization or hypernormalization and the associated dread and denial and the despair and the dissociation, right? Because we have to be engaged and we have to be careful. We can no longer take for granted a video that looks like it's from the news. We need to actually check to make sure that it is not a bunch of AI slop. John Oliver did a really good piece on this a couple weeks ago that you can find on YouTube. The next piece is to get in community in real life. Online is not enough. It's not. Because with everything going on, what we are seeing is the system instability is also the power grid, internet access. These things are not guaranteed. A lot of us in the United States have been very, very lucky to not have to deal with a lot of like brownouts and blackouts in ways that a lot of other places in the world do have to deal with. But as we embark on a regime that is insistent on destroying the planet and us, it means that the internet, it means that electricity are not going to be as stable, right? They're going to start punishing or affordable, right? They're going to start punishing folks for using renewable resources, and they want to kill all clean energy projects, right? That's part of how they passed the bill in the Senate, or that's how they passed the bill in Congress this week, right? And so with that means that it's great to be able to do this, right? If I did not believe that information like what I'm presenting today was important or might be helpful to folks, I wouldn't be here. If I thought it was a waste of time to create information and education online for people to have free access to, or as free as possible, then I wouldn't waste my time, right? Like, we'd just play a game and I'd shut my mouth. But I've been talking with a lot of people at work, outside of work, clients, colleagues, friends, acquaintances, hearing folks talking at the store while I'm getting groceries and things like that. And it definitely seemed to me as though there's a real lack of understanding around what we're experiencing and the fact that it's not us. We're not overreacting. We are in fact underreacting. But I also am under no delusion that having these conversations online is enough. I'm also having these conversations with my IRL community. We are making plans and finding ways to make sure that we can stay in touch and that we can find each other if access to the internet collapses or is taken away, restricted by the regime, if the power grid collapses and goes out. Because again, a lot of this infrastructure is already aging. It has not been upkept properly. And the extent to that somewhat depends on what state you're in. But as a country, we have not invested in people. That means we have not invested in infrastructure. And as such, internet is not enough. Online is not enough. You are going to need people who have your back in person, in your community, locally. You're going to need to know how to get food locally. The internet only gets you so far. While we have access to it, while it is still somewhat free, right? Not free monetarily necessarily, but free to access different things. Now's the time to start printing things out. If you want to know how to garden, if you want to know how to tell what plants in your area are safe to eat, how to cultivate them and things like that, that's great. There's a lot of information on the internet. Again, read and watch critically, because there is also a lot of AI slop messing things up. But print that stuff out so that you have it, because unfortunately we can't guarantee that they're not going to yank access or that the infrastructure is going to stay there. The more investment in generative artificial intelligence, the more strain on our power grids and the more expensive power will be. Right? So get in community, find your people IRL, not just online. Online is a powerful tool. A lot of my friends, a lot of the people I love and trust, I now keep track with through the internet, through the phone, through text messages. And also, I have to be realistic about the fact that if the power grid goes down, if I can't access the internet, having good friends in Texas does not help me. It does not help me to get there. And it does not help me here. So on a related note is get involved. We talked last time about the fact that getting involved can mean a lot of things. We talked about the social change framework by Deepa Iyer, and that there are a lot of different roles that people can play and that we need them all. And we do need them all. And that means we need you to get involved. And if we're talking about IRL, right, whether it is art, whether it is organizing boycotts, whether it is organizing mutual aid, whether it's organizing education, study groups, right? Things like this, but at like your local library, get involved. Find what you can do and do what you can. If you know that you have needs that you are going to need help with, right? I mentioned this in the last stream too, of building a care network. I'm building a care network with other Black queer folks here locally in person. And like, we're taking on stuff. I have a printer. I'm making us all cards that have our address and contact information, the intersections of where we can be found, what resources we have to offer, and what needs we're gonna need help to attune to if we need anything, and emergency contacts in case we go missing, in case something happens to us. That's something to consider for yourself as well. There are online, I should have pulled this up sooner. There are toolkits that go through and talk about how to, like, things to think about and how to organize yourself and others for possible emergencies. It's an emergency operation plan. This is version 1.5. Here, let me here it is. This is the labor and work of Mia V. Rowles, and it's supposed to be updated again in August. They're hoping to put out a significant update to it in August. But in an emergency plan like this, it can also be really affirming, because it does show that, hey, yeah, you're not overreacting. You're not losing your mind. Things are serious, and other people are thinking about these things too. That can be affirming, right? Part of the reason I'm doing this as well is because it can be really affirming to have someone be like, hey, things are shitty. You feel shitty. Here's why. Here's some words to put to it. Well, I'm not always a huge fan of, I'm not necessarily a huge fan of medicalized diagnoses for mental health. Naming is a powerful tool. It can be very affirming. And so we're naming some things here. Now, this doesn't mean we have to diagnose anyone with hypernormalization, but what it does mean is that, hey, you don't have to internalize this stuff, right? And that goes into journaling. Now, when I say journaling, I am not only talking about writing in a journal. If you like to write in a journal, that's fabulous, right? Great. I get it. It's not everybody's thing. That's fair. Think about sketching, thinking about recording it. Like, do what you need to do to record what's happening, so that you're not feeling this heavy push-pull when you see with your own eyes a video of, for instance, a hate crime, and then the police say, oh, we found no evidence of a hate crime. Having that proof to go back to and be like, oh no, they're doing something shady, they're wrong, is really, really helpful. Also with that, with these things in general, is just self-compassion. I'm gonna make myself bigger here for a bit, because I think it's a very I think it's a really underappreciated thing to say, and it doesn't get enough play, but we are very much, especially if you're in the US, we are in a country that is very deeply invested in us hating ourselves and not trusting ourselves. That doesn't mean that we go into can't nobody tell me nothing mode. That's not what that means. But what it does mean is our ability to slow down and be able to say, hold on, I know me. I don't think that I'm wrong. That doesn't have to mean hurting anyone. That doesn't have to mean, we're not going to extremes. But what that does mean is that we do have to get a lot better at combating self-hatred and noticing manifestations of it, knowing when someone is baiting us to make us feel shitty, right? Because even when we make mistakes, how much easier is it to attune to the need to do better if someone approaches you with compassion, is like, hey, we all mess up sometimes. You messed up. I really think you need to apologize, and I think we need to have a conversation, versus someone saying, I hate you, you're a horrible person, you're never gonna change, you're useless. It's right, like there's going to be a different response. Now, don't tone police people when you've messed up. Like, hopefully I don't have to say that, but I'm gonna say it anyway. But again, these things are about discernment and balancing. It's getting dark. And so when you're noticing yourself diving into things like internalized capitalism, of like, oh, I'm not doing enough, I'm not getting enough work done, what's wrong with me? Okay, so pause, right? When we get to the what's wrong with me, that's a really good clue that something is happening here that maybe we need to question and maybe shouldn't be happening. Because with a few exceptions, it's like, unless it's like medical, like with a few exceptions, including maybe like medical help, being like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? And it's not when you have like a fever, usually isn't actually going to yield the like self-compassion and self-love needed to address whatever is happening in that moment. It's usually about to be a whole shame spiral, and that's going to be counterproductive, right? That gets us into like denial and dissociation. Well, nothing's wrong with me, clearly something has to be wrong with them. Like, if you did mess up, like that's not going to help. And even if you didn't mess up, you're much, much more likely to mess up if we get super defensive. I've been talking for a bit. Do folks have any questions? How's everyone feeling? Does anyone have any questions? Because I just want to make sure folks have a space, because I know I've been talking for about 45 minutes at this point. Okay. Yeah, just contemplating. Okay. So if folks have questions, please ask questions in chat at any time. I am monitoring chat. Um One thing I think is really important to talk about today, especially, um, is the dissonance and difficulty around the 4th of July in the United States. This Canada Day, I think, was a couple of days ago, so possibly also Canada Day if you're Canadian. Um, I'm glad it's helpful, Heaven's Turtle, sorry. Um, oh yeah, I can talk more about institutional betrayal. I'm gonna, so Frederick Douglass, gave a speech back in 1852. Um, what to the slave is the 4th of July. And this makes the rounds um, every 4th of July, and rightfully so. Um, and I do want to take some time to, I'm going to go ahead and read it in its entirety, because I think it's really meaningful. And I know not everyone has read this or heard it before. Um, and I think this is somewhat of an excerpt. I think there might be chunks, a few pieces missing, but it's one of the more complete ones. So we're going to talk about this, and because aspects of this speech get into institutional betrayal, I will then also talk about that. I will also post the Medium article that I wrote about institutional betrayal. Um, so let me get that first. Now I can't find my own Medium page. That's fun. One second, y'all. And yeah, I didn't even I didn't think of it heavily. I didn't even think of the 4th of July heavily until people mentioned it. And then I was like, "Oh shit. That is okay. Well, damn. All right. Let me share this story. So this is an article I wrote in February of 2024, um about, and it's the cost of organizational silence, and it defines and talks about institutional betrayal. So I will also talk about this after we read Frederick Douglass. Here is the Frederick Douglass piece. If you are not an auditory person, I am gonna pause my music here in my own headphones because it's harder to read if I have music in my head. All right. So, what to the slave is the 4th of July? By Frederick Douglass. My subject then follows, then fellow citizens, is American slavery. I shall see this day and its popular characteristics from the slave's point of view. Standing there, identified with the American bondman, making his wrongs mine, I do not hesitate to declare with all my soul that the character and conduct of this nation never looked blacker to me than on this 4th of July. Whether we turn to the declarations of the past or to the professions of the present, the conduct of the nation seems equally hideous and revolting. America is false to the past, false to the present, and solemnly binds herself to be false to the future. Standing with God and the crushed and bleeding slave on this occasion, I will, in the name of humanity which is outraged, in the name of liberty which is fettered, in the name of the Constitution and the Bible which are disregarded and trampled upon, dare to call in question and to denounce with all the emphasis I can command everything that serves to perpetuate slavery, the great sin and the great shame of America. I will not equivocate. I will not excuse. I will use the severest language I can command, and yet not one word shall escape me that any man whose judgment is not blinded by prejudice, or who is not at heart a slave holder, shall not confess to be right and just. But I fancy I hear someone of my audience say, it is just in the circumstance that you and your brother abolitionists fail to make a favorable impression on the public mind. Would you argue more and denounce less? Would you persuade more and rebuke less? Your cause would be much more likely to succeed. But I submit, where all is plain, there is nothing to be argued. What point in the anti-slavery creed would you have me argue? On what branch of the subject do the people of this country need light? Must I undertake to prove that the slave is a man? The point is conceded already. Nobody doubts it. The slaveholders themselves acknowledge it in the enactment of laws for their government. They acknowledge it when they punish disobedience on the part of the slave. There are 72 crimes in the state of Virginia which, if committed by a black man, no matter how ignorant he be, subject him to the punishment of death, while only 2 of the same crimes will subject a white man to the like punishment. What is this but the acknowledgement that the slave is a moral, intellectual, and responsible being? The manhood of the slave is conceded. It is admitted in the fact that Southern statute books are covered with enactments forbidding, under severe fines and penalties, the teaching of the slave to read or write. When you can point to any such laws in reference to the beasts of the field, then I may consent to argue the manhood of the slave. When the dogs in your streets, when the fowls of the air, when the cattle on your hills, when the fish of the sea and the reptiles that crawl shall be unable to distinguish the slave from a brute, then I will argue with you that slave is a man. For the present, it is enough to affirm the equal manhood of the Negro race. It is not astonishing that while we are plowing, planting, and reaping, using all kinds of mechanical tools, erecting houses, constructing buildings, building ships, working in metals of brass, iron, copper, silver, and gold, that while we are reading, writing, and ciphering, acting as clerks, merchants, and secretaries, having among us lawyers, doctors, ministers, poets, authors, editors, orators, and teachers, that while we are engaged in all manner of enterprises common to other men, digging gold in California, capturing the whale in the Pacific, feeding sheep and cattle on the hillside, living, moving, acting, thinking, planning, living in families as husbands and wives and children, and all above, confessing and worshiping the Christian's God, and looking hopefully for our life and immortality beyond the grave, we are called upon to prove that we are men. Would you have me argue that man is entitled to liberty? That he is the rightful owner of his own body? Would you have already declared it? Must I argue the wrongfulness of slavery? Is that a question for Republicans? Is it to be settled by the rules of logic and argumentation as a matter beset with great difficulty, involving a doubtful application of the principle of justice, hard to be understood? How should I look today in the presence of Americans, dividing and subdividing a discourse to show that men have a natural right to freedom? Speaking of it relatively and positively, negatively and affirmatively, to do so would be to make myself ridiculous and to offer an insult to your understanding. There is not a man beneath the canopy of heaven that does not know that slavery is wrong for him. What am I to argue that it is wrong to make men brutes, to rob them of their liberty, to work them without wages, to keep them ignorant of their relations to their fellow men, to beat them with sticks, to flay their flesh with the lash, to load their limbs with irons, to hunt them with dogs, to sell them at auction, to sunder their families, to knock out their teeth, to burn their flesh, to starve them into obedience and submission to their masters? Must I argue that a system thus marked with blood and stained with pollution is wrong? No, I will not. I have better employments for my time and strength than such arguments would imply. What then remains to be argued? Is it that slavery is not divine, that God did not establish it, that our doctors of divinity are mistaken? There is blasphemy in the thought. That which is inhumane cannot be divine. Who can reason on such a proposition? They that can, may. I cannot. The time for such argument is past. At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument is needed. Oh, had I the ability and could reach the nation's ear, I would today pour out a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke, for it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be roused. The propriety of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed, and the crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days of the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity, your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless, your denunciations of tyrants, brass-fronted impotence, your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery, your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, all with all your religious parade and solemnity are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour. Take the American slave trade, which we are told by the papers is essentially prosperous just now. That trade has long since been denounced by this government as piracy. That has long since been denounced by this government as piracy. It has been denounced with burning words from the high places of the nation as an execrable traffic. To arrest it, to put it to an end, this nation keeps a squadron at immense cost on the coast of Africa. Everywhere in this country, it is safe to speak of this foreign slave trade as a most inhumane traffic, opposed alike to the laws of God and man. It is, however, a notable fact that while so much execration is poured out by Americans upon those engaged in the foreign slave trade, the men engaged in the slave trade between the states pass without condemnation, and their business is deemed honorable. But a still more inhumane, disgraceful, and scandalous state of things remains to be presented. By an act of the American Congress, not yet 2 years old, slavery has been nationalized in its most horrible and revolting form. By that act, Mason and Dixon's line has been obliterated. New York has become as Virginia, and the power to hold, hunt, and sell men, women, and children as slaves remains no longer a mere state institution, but now the institution of the whole United States. The power is coextensive with the Star-Spangled Banner and American Christianity. Where these go, may also go the merciless slave hunter. For black men, there are neither law, justice, humanity, nor religion. The fugitive slave law makes mercy to them a crime and bribes the judge who tries them. An American judge gets $10 for every victim he consigns to slavery, and $5 when he fails to do so. The oath of any 2 villains is sufficient under this hell black enactment to send the most pious and exemplary black man into the remorseless jaws of slavery. His own testimony is nothing. He can bring no witnesses for himself. The minister of American justice is bound by the law to hear but one side, and that side is the side of the oppressor. Let this damning fact be perpetually told. Let it be thundered around the world that in tyrant killing, king hanging, king hating, people loving, democratic Christian America, the seats of justice are filled with judges who hold their offices under an open and palpable bribe and are bound in deciding in the case of a man's liberty, hear only his accusers. The church of this country is not only indifferent to the wrongs of the slave, it actually takes sides with the oppressor. It has made itself the bulwark of American slavery and the shield of American slave hunters. Many of its most eloquent divines, who stand as the very lights of the church, have shamelessly given the sanctions of religion and the Bible to the whole slave system. They have taught that man may properly be a slave, that the relation of master and slave is ordained of God, that to send back an escaped bondman to his master is clearly the duty of all followers of the Lord Jesus Christ. And this horrible blasphemy is palmed off upon the world of Christianity. Let the religious press, the pulpit, the Sunday school, the conference meeting, the great ecclesiastical, the missionary, Bible and tract associations of land array of their immense powers against slavery and slaveholding, and the whole system of crime and blood would be scattered to the winds. And that they do not do this involves them in the most awful responsibility which the mind can conceive. Fellow citizens, I will not enlarge further on your national inconsistencies. The existence of slavery in this country brands your republicanism a sham. Your humanity is a base pretense. Your Christianity as a lie. It destroys your moral power abroad. It corrupts your politicians at home. It saps the foundation of religion. It makes your name a hissing and a byword to mocking earth. It is the antagonistic force in your government, the only thing that seriously disturbs and endangers your union. It fetters your progress. It is the enemy of improvement, the deadly foe of education. It fosters pride. It breeds insolence. It promotes vice. It shelters crime. It is a curse to the earth that supports it, and yet you cling to it as if it were the sheet anchor of all your hopes. Oh, be warned, be warned. A horrible reptile is coiled up in your nation's bosom. The venomous creature is nursing at the tender breast of your youthful republic. For the love of God, tear away and fling from you the hideous monster, and let the weight of 20 millions crush and destroy it forever. But it is answered in reply to all this that precisely what I have now denounced is in fact guaranteed and sanctioned by the Constitution of the United States, that the right to hold and hunt slaves is a part of the Constitution framed by the illustrious fathers of the Republic. But I differ from those who charge this baseness on the framers of the Constitution of the United States. It is slander upon their memory, at least, so I believe. Fellow citizens, there is no matter in respect to which the people of the North have allowed themselves to be so ruinously imposed upon as the pro-slavery character of the Constitution. In that instrument, I hold there is neither warrant nor license nor sanction of the hateful thing, but interpreted as it ought to be interpreted, the Constitution is a glorious liberty document. Read its preamble, consider its purposes. Is slavery among them? Is it at the gateway, or is it in the temple? It is neither. While I do not intend to argue this question on the present occasion, let me ask, if it be not somewhat singular that, if the Constitution were intended to be, by its framers and adopters, a slave-holding instrument, why neither slavery, slave-holding, nor slave can anywhere be found in it? what would be thought of an instrument drawn up, legally drawn up, for the purpose of entitling the city of Rochester to a tract of land in which no mention of land was made. Now, take the Constitution according to its plieth reading, now take the Constitution according to its plain reading, and I defy the presentation of a pro-slavery clause in it. On the other hand, it will be found to contain principles and purposes entirely hostile to the existence of slavery. Allow me to say, in conclusion, notwithstanding the dark picture I have presented of the state of the nation, I do not despair of this country. There are forces in operation which must inevitably work the downfall of slavery. Quote, "The arm of the Lord is not shortened, and the doom of slavery is certain. I therefore leave off where I began, with hope. While drawing encouragement from the Declaration of Independence, the great principles it contains, and the genius of American institutions, my spirit is also cheered by the obvious tendencies of the age. Nations do not now stand in the same relation to each other that they did ages ago. No nation can now shut itself up from the surrounding world and trot around in the same old path of its fathers without interference. The time was when such could be done. Long established customs of hurtful character could formally fence themselves in and do their evil work with social impunity. Knowledge was then confined and enjoyed by the privileged few, and the multitude walked on in mental darkness. But a change has now come over the affairs of mankind. Walled cities and empires have become unfashionable. The arm of commerce has borne away the gates of the strong city. Intelligence is penetrating the darkest corners of the globe. It makes its pathway over and under the sea, as well as on the earth. Wind, stream, and lightning are its chartered agents. Oceans no longer divide but link nations together. From Boston to London is now a holiday excursion. Space is comparatively annihilated. Thoughts expressed on one side of the Atlantic are distinctly heard on the other. The far off and almost fabulous Pacific rolls in grandeur at our feet. The celestial empire, the mystery of ages as being solved. The fiat of the Almighty, let there be light, has not yet spent its force. No abuse, no outrage, whether in taste, sport, or avarice, can now hide itself from the all-pervading light. The iron shoe and crippled foot of China must be seen in contrast with nature. Africa must rise and put on her yet unwoven garment. Ethiopia shall stretch out her hand unto God. And in the fervent aspirations of William Lloyd Garrison, I say, and let every heart join in saying it, God speed the year of the Jubilee, the wide world o'er, when from their galling chains set free, the oppressed shall vilely bend the knee and wear the yoke of tyranny. Like brutes no more, the year will come, freedom's reign, to man his plundered rights again restore. So, if you hadn't heard it before, or read it before, that is Frederick Douglass. That's Frederick Douglass's speech from What to the Slave is the 4th of July. So, what he talks about of the institutional promises of the United States not being fulfilled, not being true, that there's a lot of hypocrisy going on. That goes into what was brought up earlier by Puddle of institutional betrayal, which essentially, the definition of which is, institutional betrayal is when you have institutions that promise things, right? So we're going to take universities for example, right? Promises to be a place of education, promises to be a place of debate and research and basically equality in a lot of ways. Now, when we look at what universities are doing right now and the way that they harmed, the way that they have harmed their students and fed their students up to fed their students to the administration when asked and abandoned them, then you see students, you see professors, you see staff feel betrayed, feel wronged, feel complicit, right? Institutional betrayal it refers to the wrongdoings perpetuated by an institution upon the people of the institution. So Frederick Douglass is talking about, right, the institution of the United States horrifically and consistently and continues to betray its people. So that's a nutshell of institutional betrayal. It's, again, can result in a lot of despair. Folks who want to try and defend the institution or who have tied their own self-worth to an institution, which is betraying the people within it, right, are also going to be probably in denial, because it's really hard to square that. If you work somewhere and they do something terrible, whether it's to you or not, we'll just say, I don't know, Microsoft reporting massive profits and then laying off thousands upon thousands of people, for instance, right? That's an institutional betrayal. The idea behind jobs and stuff is, hey, if you do your job and make money, we will pay you part of that money because you're doing work, right? If you do a good job, you will, like, you'll get promoted and these things. Whereas now, what we're seeing is that we've hit such a necrotic point in capitalism, in unfettered capitalism, that this necro capitalistic function is entropying, right? Like, it's growing and growing and growing, and it's eating itself. It's cannibalizing its own people. And so there's a lot of disillusionment right now, and rightfully so, honestly, because why would we trust in these organizations? Why would we give our lives, right, our time? Like, people give up time with their families to go to work, to be at work, and to buy into the American dream, right? The myth of the American dream. And it's no longer just Black and Indigenous people who are like, America's a lie, right? The United States is a lie. It has lied since its inception. And that's no different now. Part of what is so difficult, and what feels so bad about what we're experiencing right now is not only do we have all of this cultural gaslighting, all of this institutional betrayal, all of this heaviness and horror constantly being fed to us through our screens and just in our day to day. And we can feel that energy, but also we're still struggling on individual levels, and we're so isolated, right? There's a lot of connection that can happen through technology, but by and large, a lot of what has actually happened is isolation. And that's also part of why, when I was talking about like combating the denial and the dread and the despair and the dissociation that can happen when we're so far steeped daily in this weird hypernormalization horror show, is to get in real life community. That's why, because at the end of the day, it's really easy to portray a certain version of you on the internet, and that's going to increase feeling like a fraud. That's going to increase that feeling that people don't know you, that you can't trust people because no one knows anyone, and you're far away from each other, in addition to the logistic issues of like, you know, how stable and how secure, you know, internet and electricity and things will be as we continue down this path of the current regime tearing the country apart with shockingly, you know, little little trouble, right? Seeing the differences in different countries is alarming too sometimes, but it again keeps our scale, it keeps us to scale. So yeah, anybody have questions? No worries. You don't have to apologize. It's not class. There's no sleazy. There's no, it's not work. It's not like you have to be here at a certain time. I was just asking if folks have any questions. So, cause there is no test. I don't have any questions, but I got some stuff to process now. Yeah, I that's very fair. I tend to have that effect on people. So I will say that's kind of all I had for folks. That's kind of all I had for planned for today. So you can always still ask questions and stuff, but as a kind of wrap up, some things that I want to say is, again, calling things what they are, the hypernormalization, the cultural gaslighting and things, right? Like, it's not an excuse. It's not a diagnosis. It is just that. It is naming so that you can then trust yourself, so that you can combat self-hatred, so that you're not just assuming something will be just assuming that something is your fault or that you indeed did misremember it. No, these things are happening. We are seeing people disappear. We are seeing the destruction of a republic. And so it's not just you. Like, if you take only one thing away today, I hope it's that you're not alone. I hope it's that you're not alone. And if you take a second thing away, that hopefully hearing me read What to the Slave is the 4th of July, reading those excerpts from that speech, hopefully you heard the similarities, right? If we tweak a few pieces of language, like, we're still talking about these issues. We're still talking about, like, denying people their freedoms and these things. And so if our ancestors could fight it and could still find joy and bring joy to be part of the fight, then we can too. And we too can come together and find our way to a better place. So please, like, I hope you enjoyed all the, like, academic side of this and the mental healthy side of this. Again, I'm really happy to answer any questions and stuff with the obvious, like, I'm a therapist, not your therapist, not gonna give any medical advice, stuff like that. But, like, general questions and things are welcome. And please do, if you found this helpful or you found this valuable, and you have some coins to spare this 4th, my Ko-fi is in the chat if you want to buy me a gift for July 4th. I don't know, man. The throne is it's just part of the same command. But I do these kinds of things. I also do games and variety and co-working and providing space as well. So if you're new and you like the vibe, feel free to hit the follow so that you know when I'm live. You can also follow me on Blue Sky as _CCH, because that's when I post when I'm going live, and I'm a chaos gremlin, and so I don't always have a schedule. So yeah, but thanks everybody for being here for this talk. Thank you for gifting that sub. So yeah, thanks for being here and talking about hypernormalization and what we can do so that we're all not getting taken for a ride. Yeah. So that's gonna be the end of the, like, formal. That's gonna be the end of, like, the formal discussion, the part that I had, like, slides and shit for. I had slides this time, y'all. Hot damn. But just checking in, how are folks feeling? I know it can be a lot, sometimes in a good way, to be like, oh, there are words for these things. But yeah, anyone have any questions? If not, then I think, there's a pretty damn decent article that The Guardian put out on about hypernormalization. It's just from from late May. I wanted to post that in chat as well. You named exactly what I was feeling, but didn't know the name for. And hearing you read Douglas's speech was really powerful. Oh, thank you. Processing, trying to consider how to build a community while being disabled and in high social anxiety and other shit. Yeah, again, I encourage you to look at what you can do and what that means for you, so that you can be you know, as safe as you can be, because it takes a lot to process through things. And yeah, we live in a country that doesn't want to give us access to shit, which sucks real bad, real bad.